conditions have seemingly improved, but it's only when a permanent peace deal is reached that some of the ugliest memories of this conflict will begin to fade. Mohammed Val, Al Jazeera, El Fasher, Northern Darfur.
Olivia Warham is the director of a UK-based non-governmental organisation called Waging Peace. Olivia joins me now live from London. 10 years ago, the world pretty much ignored the beginning of the conflict in Darfur. 10 years later, has Darfur been forgotten?
Well, I think that this is a major issue. Darfur has been largely forgotten in recent years. The media spotlight has not been focused on it, and this is very concerning because to say that the situation there is more stable is very misleading. Waging Peace is in touch daily with Darfuris in the UK, and they give us very different information. We're hearing from them that the security there is deteriorating, violence is on the increase, and UNAMID is simply not able to help them.
And we're also hearing from the State Department that is saying that this, what they describe as a devastating conflict, could continue, or is likely to continue, unless there's a new political process. Can you see where that process could start?
Well, I think it's going to take a huge push from the international community. We need to focus on Darfur. It has come out of the spotlight, and 10 years on, we are still seeing violence there. So there are many UN resolutions that have been put into place but are simply not being implemented, and that's going to take much more political will from the international community. We need to see travel bans extended, we need to see freezing of assets, we would like to see a no-fly zone, importantly, over Darfur, because the civilians are still being bombed. Only a couple of days ago, Kalma camp, one of the main camps, saw 1,500 new civilians enter into it. So the population are still being bombed, and that is being orchestrated by the Sudanese government. So a peace agreement that is really meaningful needs to be put into place to protect these people.
But there's no political imperative, is there, that I can see? I remember Sir Kofi Annan famously saying this wasn't a genocide. To be fair to Kofi Annan, his hands were tied because a UN commissioned report said there hadn't been a genocide. If that report had acknowledged the genocide that America claimed there had been, do you think there would have been a less muted reaction from the international community?
I think that the arguing over the term genocide has led, without a doubt, to a much slower response on this. But I think the world has also got very caught up with responding to terrorism. And that clearly is important, but we should not forget that when civilians are dying, the United Nations has a duty to protect them, and UNAMID is there with a Chapter 7 mandate, which means the right to protect civilians, but without the political will from the UN and the international community, that is just not being implemented. And as a result, the Sudanese government has become emboldened over the years. They're not just bombing civilians in Darfur, but also now in the south, in South Kordofan and Blue Nile. So we're seeing a situation where the Khartoum regime has repeated its pattern of ethnic cleansing. We would call it a genocide because that is the evidence that we see. But the civilians are being killed, and Waging Peace, along with many other organisations worldwide, are initiating a campaign this year called Darfur 10, which brings a spotlight to the fact that Darfur is still a disaster 10 years on, that the violence is escalating again, and that the international community is duty-bound to try to prevent that.
Olivia Warham in London. Thanks, Olivia, for joining us.
Thank you.
The South African Parliament is about to vote on a new budget. The government says it wants to create thousands of new jobs to revive